here we are back for some herd action. Herd Winter Series, breakfast crits and grits. You can see the course there on the top right hand side. Pretty stacked field as expected. We've got a good dirt representation. Ian, Smallman, Dan, Keith, Jason Robinson, myself. I'm usually at the back of that pack. But a pretty deep field with the likes of Manalo, Amado, Micah Reeves, Alex Doyon, the usual suspects from this time slot, the Saturday 8 p.m. Eastern time, catches some of the guys in the Pacific who are racing in the morning. So right into the first Skur Summit climb, I don't know if you saw there, my PR was set a couple weeks ago on ZRL. It was 141. Was feeling all right coming in. I had a decent warm-up, but wasn't sure. I always get dropped with these guys. They're just so strong. And managed to make it over the top of the first climb about 2.5 minutes in, and 139.7, which was a PR from my best effort before. So that bodes pretty well for me. Heart rate is coming down pretty regularly on this downhill here. My plan tonight was just to surf wheels and make sure that I was always surrounded by guys so that I could, make sure that I saved my matches for the times that were required. Right off the bat, you can see there's 47 folks in the race, and that first climb chopped it in half. We were 21 going into the little Glasgow version of, or the Glasgow portion of this race. So this was one lap Glasgow, which includes the Clyde Kicker and then the Champions Sprint, but it's a scratch race, so none of these really matter other than maybe lighting it up if somebody decides to use it as a selection point. So the Clyde Kicker always gets me. I never really get it right. It's kind of a double climb, and the timing is difficult for me because I normally either go too hard early or don't go hard enough. So I had a feather, and I think I timed it right this time. Again, just surfing wheels. Had to put in a decent dig, but managed to, again, stay surrounded, not go off the front, not fall off the back. I had decided tonight to go for a more climbing setup, and that would be the Pinarello Dogma with the NB 7.8s. Reason being, I knew this was a field of A's and A pluses, and if I had any chance in sticking around, those selection points were key, and they're all going to be climbs or something with incline. So I found myself with a lighter rig than a full disc setup, which I think worked well for me for the most part. Here we are at the Champions Sprint. Not much happening in terms of people going off the front or being silly for a race that has a bunch of A's and A pluses. So far, the first 10 minutes was pretty tame. Feels like people were just kind of conserving, same as me, and looking to attack in the places that were obvious. So here we are going out towards the Nessie's Loop. The next little piece of this race is the next little point of attack will be the Castle Corkscrew, which is coming up. But there's a bit of a downhill, uphill that happens beforehand, and it's a pretty decent place to attack if you're strong enough to make it through the corkscrew. And that's exactly what happened kind of right here. Somebody decides to attack and go off the front, and my climbing rig kind of hurt me here. I would have probably benefited from something a little more aero. You can see the pack is kind of thinned out, and I have to work harder than I want to. Like I'm doing 400 watts here just to stay connected, and that wasn't a match I was planning on burning. And thankfully this coalition dude just made it through and brought me in, because I think I would have gotten dropped there. I'm perilously close to falling off the back. I use my draft here, thankfully, to kind of catch a few more wheels and then close this gap. Ian's telling me to calm down and not, expend too much energy, which is the right call there. So it was great to have him on voice with Dan to, to keep heads on straight. So after that, we have a little downhill that leads into the Castle Corkscrew, and there's a bit of an attack, I would say, coming up. I had to go harder than I wanted, but it's a good selection point. There's some of the dirt guys we all kind of organized to try to carry our speed through, and then all of a sudden I'm at the back and I'm like, oh no, 700 watts to try to stay connected. And again, don't go too hard, stay within the pack, make sure that you do just enough to stay in the draft. You'll notice my draft up there is usually in the 100 or 200 range. To the extent I can keep it in that range, I do. That reflects in my final numbers as well. You got to keep your matches for when you're ready to fire them off. So here's the first climb on the breakaway Brae, and we do this little climb 4 times. This is called Nessie's Loop, where we loop around and do this little climb times 4. At this point, again, everyone's just chilling. There's 20 of us, so we dropped 1 person, but other than that, nothing's really happening. Somebody goes off the front here, thins it out ever so slightly, but not much is happening. I kind of expected somebody to really drop the hammer, but I think the bumpiness and the size of this pack makes a solo breakaway tough to stick. Of course, like this, especially knowing the sort of minute and a half, 100 to 110 second climb at the end. So here we are again on this little kick, breakaway Brae. So there's some good banter from the guys who are just talking about who was going to win, and everyone's pointing fingers at others. And Ian and Jason, Maddox, they're all strong riders who typically be at the front. David Amato, obviously, super strong rider who's always is up there. Now, I think this is where somebody goes off the front, and it's a great little move because we're now in a situation where we're starting to lap the other riders, and it can lead to a bit of confusion because you look on the little mini map and you see dots everywhere and you're not exactly sure who's what and where and how far they are. So you can see me fiddling around with screens trying to figure out who's up there, how far they are. So I eventually just clicked on Hata, who was about 8 seconds up at that point. And almost get dropped here. Have to pay attention when you're racing, especially when you're on a little climb like this. That was a close one. Thankfully, I have my power up still. And so we're all trying to figure out what happens with Hata, if he or she, if they're going to be, making it stick. Somebody's going to go bridge. There's a lot going on here in your mind. And especially with the other lapped riders, it is causing a bit of confusion. So it is a great move, and it's a great time for somebody to try to make a break because of the confusion that it creates. Even on a video game where you can click and look up the road, unlike in real life where you don't know what's going on the road. This is our last time over this little kick here. And then we're going to head back towards the Corkscrew Castle and the last climb, which is the Skur South. So we're going to make a right hand as usual, but then instead of turning right on the second time, we're going to hang a left. And the climb up the reverse side of the castle corkscrew isn't as steep. It feels a little bit more steady. So we kind of stayed together there. There wasn't any big shenanigans happening at that point. I think this is about when we started to close Hata down. We caught him. At this point, I thought I didn't have any power-ups left, so I was holding onto my feather. You can see everyone dropping theirs. I was a little worried that I wouldn't have a power-up for the finish, so I held on to it. You can see me talking to the others there who are saying, no, there's another power-up arch coming up after this little up and down. And thankfully, the guys were there to tell me that, because I think without chatting with them and confirming, I wouldn't have used it here and would have likely been dropped, because I was starting to feel it. 175 heart rate, not in danger, but I was kind of tired, and I knew that if I had to go too hard here, it would affect my finish. So used up my feather. Less than 2k to go. We're gonna come through this arch soon to get a new power up, and then it'll be the finish, which is going up Sker Summit South again, which is a short climb, not the long one. And here we are coming through. I get myself an arrow, unfortunately for me, which doesn't really help a whole ton. I'm going to slow it down and just give you some real time. I know it seems like I'm in slow motion at this point because I've been on, double speed, so it might take a minute, but this gives you a sense of, how the effort's being gauged and judged. So Keith went off the front pretty early on, but faded towards the back, and that gave Ian an opportunity to just jump and go. And again, here I am, surrounded by wheels, thinking, okay, I'm doing all right. Not struggling too hard, despite the fact that I'm at 180 and having to hold 400. I knew that there is a little flat here that I can kind of sit and have a bit of a rest, which gave me a little bit of extra. And I realized, this is where I need to start going. I'm in, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. I have an opportunity here to make a move. Ian looks like he's got the win, and I see Dan come through me. And just over this climb is a bit of a flat part. So I decide this is the time and place for me to go. And shockingly, I'm in 5th, surrounded by all these guys. And this is where I make my move. I kind of half went and then decided to go. And that little bit of hesitation, I think, gave Jason the upper hand. You can see him just in front of me there. And then when I look up and I realize he's got a, bit of a gap on me, I decide it's not worth trying to chase him. And I take 4th. There we are. I was quite surprised to take 4th. You can see me saying, wow, look at that. My, watts were decent, but nothing outrageous. I think serving and doing a good job of holding things steady was the way to play it, and I think I got a little bit lucky, but that was that. Hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.